So we are already back for episode 2 review of Tales. This week we had Meek Mill's song Cold Hearted. Honestly, I've never really heard the song before this episode, but I could say I kind of liked it after I listened to it. Thankfully, this episode this week was only an hour, so we could follow this one a little bit better. Starring in this one this week, we had Keith Powers, and I know everybody was so excited to see Keith Powers. I heard everybody online talking about, oh, Keith Powers is so cute, but what you didn't know is that Keith Powers died quicker in this episode than Chris Brown did in Stomp the Yard. And I know y'all bought y'all's tickets trying to see Chris Brown in Stomp the Yard because you thought he was starring in the movie just like I did. But yeah, he died, but he was in the rest of the episode. So let's get into it and discuss what happened. So like I said at the beginning, Keith Powers, which his name was Gutta in this episode, he got shot at the very beginning. So MC Light, who was a detective on this case, was investigating the whole thing and what happened. So we start off with him, his best friend, Little Tank, or Tank as they call him, was with him when he got shot. So he was upset, he was crying. So they interview him and he was just really sad, and he was like, you know, my brother got shot, I just feel so bad. And of course now the detectives want to know what was really going on. So while they're questioning him about the shooting, Tank has his theory that these guys from a rival gang are the ones who killed Gutta. But the story sounds a little weird to me. Tank starts to tell a story about a guy named Hazard who's in this gang, who apparently had an issue with Gutta and all of them because he was famous and because they were affiliated with his rival gang or whatever. So he tries to put the blame on them and says they were jealous and that Hazard had him killed. So of course he's really convincing the detectives. They think this is probably true, and they go on to find Hazard and question him about the whole shooting and what happened that night. So Hazard is played by Mano. He's a rapper. And of course, Lil Tank is he's playing it up. And he's like, yeah, you know, these people, they did it. They had to have done it. They was jealous. So that's all that happened. So we get to the point they find Hazard and they question him. Well, now the story changes. So during the episode, everybody who told the story had a different angle and a different way that things happened. Well, Hazard has a totally different theory, and he's saying that, you know, he was cool with them, and when they got famous, you know, things changed, and of course he would never have had him killed. Now, before I forget and get too far into the story, there was a girl named Leslie who was working at the club that Gutta and Tank would rap at. She was responsible for getting them a record deal. We're getting Gutta a record deal, not Tank, but she was there, and I guess eventually started dating Gutta after he signed his big contract. So during Hazard's story, of course, he talks about he made a diss song to Gutta about everything and about him messing with his girl. So of course the detectives think that's motive and he had something to do with it. But he makes it very clear that he wouldn't have had him killed and that wasn't his game. So Hazard put all the blame on Lewis, who is the manager or the guy who's kind of over Tank and Gutta's career, which to me, he gave me Suge Knight kind of vibes. He was sitting in the red chair with the whole red suit. So I don't know if this was trying to play on that or not, but it's kind of what it seemed like. So now they bring in Leslie, and she wants to tell her side of the story. Well, at first she's afraid to tell because she's for sure that Lewis had something to do with it, and she knows that if she says anything then she'll be killed or whatever. So at first, of course, I thought she had something to do with it. I was almost positive she set him up, but I was wrong. So she tells her side of the story. She explains that really, honestly, she didn't really even want the boy. She was just with him because, of course, he was famous and she saw he was coming up and doing things, so she jumped on the bandwagon like everybody else. But in her side of the story, she also blames Lewis and says that it was his people that got him killed because he was trying to leave and he was going to leave the record label, and so he had him killed before he could. So of course now the detectives are just convinced it's Lewis and they have to find him and bring him in. So also, while Leslie and Gutter were together, it was obvious that Tank kind of had a little jealousy there, and that he wanted her at first, but she went for Gutter obviously because he had the money. There was one point where he even walked in on them, after they was doing whatever they was doing, and you could tell he was just really jealous of her, and he thought, that Leslie should have been his. So fast forward, now the detectives are bringing in Lewis, and he's gonna tell his side of the story. So he said he has nothing to do with it. He just wanted to see Gutta succeed. So he tells his side of the story, and in his story, he paints Tank as a leech, and all these other people are just kind of bandwagoning on his tail, bringing him down, bringing negativity into his life, and just kind of messing up the whole flow of his career. So he says, it was a mistake for him to even bring Tank along with him, and that they need to look at him. So of course the detectives don't believe that, because Tank was Gutta's best friend. It was his brother, so he says. And they thought they were really close, so of course they didn't believe it. But now they don't really know where to go, because we have 4 different sides of a story, and now we're all confused, because I know I was confused. But towards the end, I was kind of trying, and I think I figured out what was going on. So I started putting the pieces together, and it started to make sense that I think Tank might have had something to do with it. So of course, at first I was thinking Tank and Leslie was teaming up together and was gonna, trying to kill this boy or something. But I don't know. I might have been wrong. So, the detectives are obviously confused. They don't know what's going on. And now they just kind of leave the case kind of open, and we're going to come back to it. So we're getting down to the last 5 minutes, and we see Tank coming out with a duffel bag just full of money. And he meets some guy in the alley, and he's talking to him, and then he gives him the money, and the guy is like, well, do you think he knew? And so we flash back to the very beginning where Gutta got shot, and Tank is standing over him laughing in his face, and was like, you were right, revenge is the best revenge. And then played it up like he was shocked that somebody shot him. So Tank ended up getting Gutta shot, which was crazy, of course. Wasn't expecting it at the very beginning, but then as the show kind of went on, we could kind of see, the song is called Cold Hearted, and it was kind of talking about, how your friends can be. So once we figured that out, and he paid the man, I was sitting there screaming at the TV like, what is going on? I can't believe he just did this. So he gives the guy the money. He's about to walk off and just live his life. And just 2 seconds after he walked away, the hitman shot him 3 times in the back. And then I was in the floor. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe he just killed him. And then he stands over him and he says, I can't stand a hater. And then it goes to black. I thought the episode was way, way better than last week's episode. But now I need to know what you guys thought. So sound off in the comments. Let me know what you thought. Like and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next video.